Good morning, I'm Angelo Castro III.
I'm Angela, and we are the Castros.
We bring you the news.
And the views that make you think.
Sometimes we agree.
Sometimes we don't.
This is News and Views.
And here are today's headlines.
A series of strong earthquakes has rattled several regions of the country in just 2 weeks, from Cebu and La Union to Davao Oriental and Isabela.
Face-to-face classes in public schools across Metro Manila are suspended today and tomorrow amid the rise in flu-like illnesses and recent earthquakes.
Congressman Kiko Barzaga leads an anti-Marcos Romualdez rally at Dasmariñas Village in Makati City.
The Philippine Coast Guard and the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources condemned the dangerous actions of the China Coast Guard near Pag-asa Island over the weekend.
A magnitude 6 earthquake jolted northern Cebu earlier today, the latest in the series of strong earthquakes that have shaken different parts of the country. Here's the report.
2 young children were caught on CCTV startled by the strong tremor that struck Mati City, Davao Oriental on Friday. Moments later, teenage boys were seen rushing to the rescue, carrying the children out to safety. Not long after the escape, the video shows the house shaking violently from the quake's impact. Fortunately, the children in the footage were unharmed. Just over a day later, another strong earthquake rocked parts of Davao. In Barangay 34D, Davao City, debris from collapsed wooden planks littered the ground after a powerful tremor hit Saturday night. Those came from a 2-story apartment made mostly of wood, which collapsed due to the quake. Apartment owner Jocelyn recalled feeling the tremor at around 10:30 p.m.
Yun na, bigla na lang gumuho yung bahay. Yung atik namin sir, bumanda na doon. Yun na namin na bigla naghinay siya, biglang ganun yung bahay.
One of the tenants, Mylene, was struck by falling wood as the quake hit.
Sabay nung pagguho ng hagdanan na sabay ako din pagkatapos natapakan ko yung pako. Parang katalas na namin kagabi, sir.
The series of tremors in Davao is just part of a string of earthquakes that have rocked different parts of the country in recent weeks. A magnitude 6.9 earthquake struck Cebu last September 30. Days later, a magnitude 4.4 tremor hit La Union and was also felt in Baguio City on October 9. Early Sunday morning, a magnitude 4.2 quake was recorded in Isabela. In the afternoon, a magnitude 5 earthquake struck Zambales, followed by a magnitude 6 earthquake off Surigao del Sur. But according to the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, these tremors are not connected.
Magkakaiba pong fault segments, yung gumalaw. Sa Cebu, it's the Bogo Bay Fault, and then sa Davao, it's the Philippine Trench. And then yung meron din tayong lindol sa Baguio, Philippine Fault naman yung source nun.
Now, why are we suddenly experiencing back-to-back earthquakes?
To answer that and more, we have Jeffrey Perez, Supervising Science Research Specialist at PHIVOLCS.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Magandang umaga po.
Alright, let's get right to it. Of course, madaming agam-agam mga kapatid natin about these earthquakes. What causes these series of earthquakes? Are they linked to each other?
Okay, basically po, the Philippines is part of the Pacific Ring of Fire.
Right.
So we are seismically active country. Without these events, PHIVOLCS is recording an average of 30 earthquakes every day. So araw-araw may nare-record tayong earthquakes. At least 30 earthquakes are being recorded. Yun nga lang sa at least past 2 weeks, nagkasabay-sabay lang yung mga magkakasunod na earthquakes. And the sources of these earthquakes are not related to each other. For example, the Cebu earthquake during September 13, the source was the Bogo Bay Fault. In Davao Oriental, we have the Philippine Trench. And then there are earthquakes in Zambales that was generated by the Manila Trench. Yung sa La Union, it was generated by one of the segments of the Philippine Fault. So within the Philippine archipelago, we have several sources of earthquakes, and in sometimes these faults may move and kung minsan sabay-sabay silang gumagalaw.
Well, while we understand naman madami talagang earthquakes on a daily basis, no? Ang question is there a reason kung bakit itong mga earthquake na ito ay medyong malalakas na siya to a point na napapansin na kasi ng tao. Yung mga ibang earthquakes, I understand kasi before, mga nasa 3 or 4 lang sa intensity. Pero ngayon, tumataas eh.
Yes, one reason is yung mga construction practices natin, and then there was an increase in awareness of people. For example, during the Saturday's event in Zambales, it was felt here in Manila at intensity 2 to intensity 3. If that happened 10 years or 15 years ago, posibleng hindi natin papansinin yan sa Metro Manila. But because of the increase in awareness of people, and then we have now the high-rise buildings, mas nararamdaman natin yung mga maliliit na mga earthquakes.
Right.
So, yun yung one of the reasons for that.
Okay, the fault po system that you mentioned earlier, ito po ba ay mga talagang binabantayan na natin, na monitor na natin prior pa dito sa paglindol nila recently?
Yes po. We have been conducting field mapping, we have done paleoseismic trenching, and for the whole Philippines, we have more than 130 or 120 seismographs. And these seismographs are sensitive enough to measure earthquakes na magnitude 1 and even earthquakes coming from other countries. Our seismographs can detect these earthquakes. So, binabantayan po natin ito, and lahat po ng mga active faults, earthquake sources in the Philippines, we put that in our website. Nandun po yung mga mapa. We also have the Fault Finder and the Hazard Hunter application by DOST PHIVOLCS.
So, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. There's a new fault that was discovered in Cebu. It's called, if I'm not mistaken, Bogo Fault Line. Tama po ba? Perhaps you can enlighten us po ano pong nangyari doon. Was this the epicenter of the...
The source of that earthquake was the Bogo Bay Fault. As a geologist, as a fault finder, we all knew that there's a fault on that area. But because of the geology, yung tipo ng bato na nandoon, like limestones, it is very easy to dissolve these limestones. And as a field mapper, it is very difficult to point on the ground kung nasaan yung trace ng fault. But we all knew that there's a lineament on that area, but we don't have the capacity during the time to identify the fault on the surface kasi nga po yung tipo ng bato doon, yung type of rocks is not so good na mamamapan namin siya. Madali po kasing malusaw itong mga limestone na to.
And para klaro lang tayo, no, itong mga sunod-sunod na earthquake na nababalitaan natin sa news these last few weeks, they cannot trigger each other or trigger further earthquakes down the line. Siyempre, ang daming lalabas online and we want things to be clear. These are, what you're saying is normal occurrences.
Yes, these are normal occurrences unless na yung katabi niyang fault yung gagalaw. For example, during the event in Davao Oriental, days after, there's another earthquake na halos kasing laki or kasing magnitude ng first na 7.4. So we call these earthquakes as a doublet earthquake. There are also instances like what happened during the 2019 Cotabato Davao del Sur earthquakes wherein there was 4 magnitude 6 earthquakes. Ang cause naman po nito is yung mga parallel faults at least 5 to 10 kilometers apart na ang nangyari is a stress transfer. So, itong mga activity na to ng mga active faults ay pinag-aaralan din po ng PHIVOLCS. So, we will inform the people if there will be some stress changes na nangyari because of these past events.
At least, diretso na kita, Jerry. The reason why I'm asking you all of this is, of course, we're very weary of yung West Valley Fault, no, which is the big one. Now, itong mga fault na recently na gumalaw or that were triggered by each other, do you see any parallel faults that may, I'm not saying it will, that may possibly in the future affect the West Valley Fault? Medyo malayo po. Medyo malayo, gumalaw sa Davao, sa Cebu, to
to affect the West Valley Fault. But we all knew that this West Valley Fault has been mapped by FIVOX thoroughly, and we have already informed communities living along the fault. So dapat po ay patuloy yung pag-prepare ng mga kababayan natin. Not only for the Metro Manila area, if that West Valley Fault will move, it will also affect provinces around Metro Manila like Cavite, Laguna, Bulacan, and Rizal. Metro Manila, together with these 4 provinces, may experience intensity 8 if the West Valley Fault will move.
Pero officially, yung West Valley Fault is due, supposedly, it's ripe already, but kailan ba talaga dapat siyang na-expect na gumalaw?
Well, based on our paleoseismic studies, this earthquake is, this West Valley Fault or the Valley Fault system is moving at least every 400 to 600 years. So merong malalakas na earthquakes na nangyayari approximately every 400 to 600 years. And the last earthquake attributed to the Valley Fault was 1658. Okay. So lumalapit tayo dun sa boundary ng
Kumbaga, humihinog na. Tama ba?
Well, yes, gagamitin natin yung term na hinog na. So for the past 350 plus years, this fault is not moving. So ibig sabihin, nag-iipon na siya ng lakas for that big one na sana ay wag mangyari in our generation.
Right. But I was wondering, sir, which areas in the Philippines pa should we watch as potentially more active in the next few years?
Well, as we all know, the Philippines is surrounded by different sources of earthquakes. Like sa eastern side ng Philippines, we have the East Luzon Trough and the Philippine Trench nasa dagat. On the western side, we have the Manila Trench, Negros Sulu Trench, and Cotabato Trench. These trenches na nakapaligid sa Pilipinas will not only shake the nearby provinces, but it may also generate a tsunami. And within the Philippine archipelago, we have several active faults. The longest of which is the Philippine Fault. The Philippine Fault traverses from northern Luzon to eastern Mindanao. So yung fault na to is more than 1,300 kilometers from Ilocos region going to Mati City in eastern Mindanao. Ang kagandahan lang about this fault will not move one time. It will move segment by segment. So we have mapped several segments of this Philippine Fault. Like for example, during the 1990 Luzon earthquake, yung Baguio earthquake, one segment of the Philippine Fault moved, yung Digdig segment. And that earthquake, that fault generated a magnitude 7.8. But these other segments may also move. We also have active faults in Mindoro, in Panay Island, and we also have active faults in Mindanao, in the eastern and western side of Mindanao.
So, yeah, buti you mentioned those other faults, no? Sa dami ng, kasi nakatutok lahat halos sa West Valley Fault, no? Pero what other fault lines should we be concerned about aside from yung West Valley Fault?
Yes, yun nga, yun sinabi ko kanina. Medyo, yun nga, ang concern ng mga tao is the big one for Metro Manila. But the big one is not only in Metro Manila. Big one is kino-correlate natin siya sa Metro Manila because of the movement of the West Valley Fault. But if we take a look at the active faults map of the Philippines, every region and every province of the Philippines have their own big one. They have their own earthquake scenarios na kailangan nilang paghandaan. Like for example, sa may Central Luzon, we have the different segments of the Philippine Fault, like the Gabaldon segment, the San Jose segment, and then the Digdig segment na huling gumalaw noong 1990 earthquake. If we go to Visayas, we have the faults in Samar Island, we have faults in Leyte, and we also have faults in Negros Island. So almost every island in the Philippines may mga sources ng earthquake.
Right. Then, while we understand na wala pa tayo talagang equipment para ma-detect or ma-predict nga yung future earthquake, I was wondering how prepared are we in FIVOX in terms of earthquake monitoring systems?
So, just like what I said a while ago, we have installed more than 120 seismic stations, and these 120 seismic stations will be expanded through the PhilVox modernization law. So from 120, we are expecting na maging 300 siya the next 5 years so that we can monitor more accurately, more faster itong mga pagkakaroon ng earthquakes. In terms of our mapping of geohazards, yung mga active faults maps natin, mga ground shaking hazard maps, we are also continuing this mapping activities ng PhilVox. Plus, we also have lots of activities informing our stakeholders, different stakeholders. We have a specific lecture series for our DepEd teachers. We also have information campaign with our media partners para it's a holistic approach. It's
Right.
an activity na dapat lahat ng tao. Sabi ko nga, dapat hindi lang ang nagpe-prepare ay yung mga estudyanteng nasa eskwelahan. Sana every family, every community, dapat ngayon pa lang ay nagpe-prepare sila.
Jeffrey, yung kasi 'di ba yung linabas rin ng quadrants pag nagkaroon ng the big one, no? There are certain quadrants. A lot of people are asking, bakit may mga quadrants? Do you expect if the big one does happen, will the cities be divided physically in such a way na because of accessibility, yung may mga roads ba nakikita nyo na baka lumaki ang bitak temporarily, baka hindi madaanan, or mag-iiba yung hulma ng mapa?
Well, nung ginawa kasi yung MMIR study, yung Metro Manila Earthquake Impact Reduction Study, we have identified na may mga bridges na posibleng masira kapag nagkaroon ng malakas na earthquake sa Metro Manila. That is the reason why yung DPWH, if you have heard yung mga past news nila, they are rehabilitating these bridges, yung mga bridges na dumadaan sa Pasig River. And sabi nga, di ba, ang next na i-renovate nila ay yung Guadalupe Bridge,
Yes.
which is a very important access. So, nung ginawa yung pag-aaral na yon, na-identify na posibleng may masirang mga bridges, there could also be mga sunog, mga fires, and then posible ring magkaroon ng isolation because of the collapse of these mga buildings. So nakikita din po yan. So in terms of our contingency plan, para lang mas madaling ma-manage yung in terms of response pagdating sa Metro Manila, MMDA together with the Office of Civil Defense, they have this Oplan Yakal Plus na kanilang gagawin kung sakaling magkaroon ng contingency plan. So, yung contingency plan na to is not only written on the books. Sometimes, nagkakaroon din ng mga simulation, mga drills, so that magkakaroon ng idea yung ating mga responders kung ano yung gagawin nila. Hindi lang yung responders from Metro Manila, they also have contingency plans na yung mga kalapit na regions natin like Region 1, Region 5, or even Region 2, pati yung mga regions sa Mindanao, they will also help Metro Manila in case na magkaroon tayo ng malakas na lindol dito. So, nakaplano itong mga strategies na to.
Right. And I want to go back lang doon saglit, sir, doon sa Mindanao and Cebu earthquake. If I'm not mistaken, last week, ang Cebu nakapagtala na ng 10,000 plus aftershocks. No? Dito po ba sa Mindanao, hanggang kailan po nila mararamdaman yung mga aftershocks pa?
Okay, let's discuss first kung ano yung aftershocks. Ang aftershocks ay para siyang, for example, yung mga bato sa ilalim, para siyang rubber band. Na habang ini-stretch natin yung rubber band, na mapipigtas siya, so that's the main shock. And then mapapansin natin yung rubber band, mag-shake pa siya, kahit na nag-snap na siya. Yung pag-shake ng rubber band na yon, yung pag-vibrate na yon, that's the aftershocks. So, ang nangyayari ngayon, yung mga bato sa ilalim, because of the main shock, ay naging unstable, and hanggang ngayon, hanggang sa magkaroon ng stable state na sila, doon natin mararanasan yung mga aftershocks. These aftershocks may last weeks, up to months. During the 2013 Bohol earthquake, kung maalala natin, ay nagkaroon, nararamdaman pa rin nila yung mga aftershocks 6 months after the main shock. So, we should expect na may mga aftershocks. Posibleng yung mga aftershocks ay mas mababa na kaysa doon sa main shock. our rule of thumb is the aftershocks is just the highest aftershock could be 1 degree lower than the main shock. So for example, for the Cebu earthquake, which has a magnitude 6.9, ang posibleng pinakamalakas na aftershocks was 5.9. And kaninang alas 2 ng madaling araw, nagkaroon ng 5.8. So hopefully that's the largest aftershock now in Cebu.
All right.
All right, thank you for that. Jeffrey Perez, Supervising Science Research Specialist at FIVOLCS.
Maraming salamat po.
The Department of Education, National Capital Region, has suspended all face-to-face classes in public schools across Metro Manila on October 13 and 14. In an advisory, DepEd NCR said the suspension aims to safeguard students and school personnel amid the rise in influenza-like illnesses and recent earthquakes. During the two-day break, schools are directed to disinfect facilities, inspect buildings for structural safety, and reinforce health and emergency preparedness measures. Learning will continue through alternative delivery modes, either online or modular. The city of Marikina also suspended classes on Monday and Tuesday due to a rise in flu and flu-like illnesses.
In other news, the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee will soon shift its investigation to farm-to-market road projects. Acting Chairman Senator Erwin Tulfo did not specify the timeline, but said the hearings could resume by late October. He cited his fellow senators' other priorities as one of the reasons influencing the schedules. Tulfo noted, though, that the Blue Ribbon Committee will still hold some hearings on the flood control anomalies.
And for the latest at the Senate, we have Mobile Journal Merimon Reyes reporting live on the ground. Merimon, what's happening
Good morning,
there?
Angelo. So far dito, tahimik pa naman ang Senado. Ang nagpapatuloy ay yung mga committee hearings, especially for the budget season. Hopefully daw, sabi ni Finance Committee Chairman Senator Sherwin Gatchalian, by December, kung mapapaaga raw nila, matatapos na nila yung pagpuproseso ng panukalang pondo ng bansa for 2026. So far, ang nakasalang din ngayon kasi simula lang ng ng budget hearing naman tungkol dito sa originally 16.21 billion pesos na request ng Commission on Audit na budget nila, pero ang nirecommend kasi sa kanila ng DBM ay 13.8 billion pesos. Pero so far, nagsisimula pa lang yung pagdinig na yan at tuloy-tuloy pa rin hanggang sa mga susunod na araw. Pero bukod dyan, nagbigay rin kanina ng update itong si Acting Blue Ribbon Committee Chairman na Senator Erwin Tulfo na plano niya rin mag-file ngayong araw ng isang panukalang batas para magkaroon na gagawin ng krimen ang license for rent na nakikitang modus pagdating dito sa mga government projects na lumabas din sa pagdinig ng Senate Blue Ribbon Committee. So dito sa kanyang License Integrity Act, gagawin ng krimen ito at yung mga parusa sa mga makikitang mahuhuli doon sa pagpapahiram ng lisensya o yung pagpaparenta ng mga lisensya ay pagkakakulong ng hindi bababa sa 3 months hanggang 12 years at meron naman siyang multa na 300 pesos and not more than 3 million pesos. Hindi lang daw nito sakop ang DPWH, sakop din ito yung mga potential na licenses na magagaling naman sa customs broker at sakop din ito yung mga environmental licenses naman mula sa DENR. So ito yung isa sa nakikita ng senador na paraan para raw ma-mitigate na yung chances na merong pagbebenta o pagpapahiram ng lisensya para makapuslit ng mga proyekto kung saan marami ang posible makakuha ng kickback. Balik sa inyo.
Meron, while we understand yung importansya, of course, ng farm-to-market road projects na kailangan imbestigahan, I was wondering, bago nila imbestigahan, mag-start sila ng investigation dito, meron na ba silang ilalabas na initial evaluation ng Blue Ribbon Committee doon sa naging investigasyon nila sa ghost flood control projects?
Angela, ang sabi dito ni Senate President Tito Soto, kailangan mo na talagang mag-convene ng Blue Ribbon Committee pa sa isang meeting, hindi mo na hearing. Dito, kasama si Acting Chairman na Senator Erwin Tulfo, paplansyahin mo na raw nila yung kailangan nilang ayusin. That includes yung magiging direksyon ng Blue Ribbon for the meantime, habang Acting Chairman itong si Senator Tulfo, and yung magiging supposed schedule niya on October, and ano yung susunod na muna nilang ipoprobe kung magkakaroon ng pagkukontinue na nga doon sa flood control, or yung nirecommend ni Senator Sherwin na farm-to-market roads na na-flag din nila na over 10 billion pesos worth na yung mga nakikita nilang losses doon sa mga overpriced. Pero hindi naman natutuloy talaga o nabubuong yung haba nitong farm-to-market roads.
Of course, ang tanong din ng iba about yung Blue Ribbon Committee is how long will Senator Tulfo remain as acting chairman? Kasi alam ko na they're discussing also the possibility of the return of Senator Pia Cayetano.
Yes, tama yan. Actually, last week din, nagbigay din ito ng pahayag si Senator Tulfo na if in case no senators will be taking up the Blue Ribbon Committee, open siya for permanent chairmanship. Pero kasi ang tinitingnan din dito ni SP Soto, hindi pa naman daw nila tinatanggal sa usapan yung 5 kandidato na mga senador. Pero so far kasi sa mga ito, 3 nang nag-decline, yung gentleman. Pero si Senator Rizon Tiveros, so far wala pa siyang final na say dito. Senator Pia Cayetano told the media last week na pagninilayan niya pa raw, pagdarasan niya pa raw, at titignan niya muna itong pagkukonsider niya. Pero if in case na tatanggapin niya ang Blue Ribbon, sabi naman ng senadora, kaya niya. So, isa yan sa mga paplansyahin nila sa kanilang pag-reconvene, and yun yung aabangan natin sa mga susunod na linggo.
So in the meantime, yung final yung resolution ng Senate Blue Ribbon Committee, pwede ba ilabas yan kung ang chairman nila is still in acting status?
Yan yung titingnan din natin kasi ang nasabi dyan ni SP Soto, lahat ng mga pending matters na naiwan kasi supposedly yung 2 weeks ago, yung pagdinig lang naman ng Blue Ribbon Committee, supposedly postponed that week dahil hindi pa ready yung mga documents ng NBI, ng DOJ, kasama na dyan yung telo affidavit ng mag-asawang Diskaya. Pero dahil nagkaroon ng resignation itong si Senator Ping as BRC chairman, so pwedeng mababago o maapektuhan talaga yung magiging direksyon na nito kung paano na ipagpapatuloy ng Blue Ribbon yung pending matters. So yan yung aabangan natin, and isa rin yan sa tinatanong din ni Senator Amy Marcos the past weeks na nasaan na raw yung initial report ng Blue Ribbon na inaasahan daw na lalabas na, bakit din daw nagkaroon nga ng paghihinto doon sa Blue Ribbon na committee hearing. So yan yung mga developing stories din dito sa Senado na patuloy nating aantabayanan.
Pero before we move forward to another topic, Merrimon, meron bang ipinasa na or ipapasa pa lang ang Senate Blue Ribbon Committee sa ICI moving on with their investigation? Especially ngayon, may bago na tayong ombudsman.
Ang nasabi dyan ni na SP Soto last week is lahat na ng findings sila, even si Senator Ping, nung siya pa ay nanunungkulan as Blue Ribbon Chairman, lahat ng meron sila mga dokumento, yung privilege speeches si Senator Ping, yung affidavits na meron sila dito, and lahat ng kung ano yung mga findings nila based din sa research na ginawa ng Blue Ribbon, ibinigay nila yun sa ICI para raw sa mas malalim pa nito pag-iimbestiga and para sa mas mabilis na pagpa-file ng charges doon sa mga personalidad na nasasangkot. So that's one, yan yung isang sigurado tayo. Pero for this coming weeks na susunod or sa mga susunod na pagdinig ng Blue Ribbon, yun yung titingnan naman natin kung magkakaroon na nga ba agad ng pagpapatuloy related dito sa flood control o tututukan muna nila yung iba naman na maaaring imbestigahan, which includes yung farm to market routes.
Meron ba tayong balita kung nasaan si Gutesa? Yung surprise witness ni Senator Marcoleta the last
So
hearing.
so far wala pa kasi ever since nung linggo na naglabas siya ng kanyang testimony, ang sunod na nangyari doon is nagkaroon na pagke-question, parang biglaan nga daw itong naging itong witness na dinala ni Senator Marcoleta. And then Senator Marcoleta defended Orly na siya ang lumapit dito sa senador at sinabi naman ni Senator Marcoleta na kung willing nga siya, ipapanotaryo niya yung affidavit at magsasalita nga siya doon sa pagdinig ng Blue Ribbon. And so far yun yung inaabangan din natin kung paano na nga mangyayari dito. Kasi hindi na naman nag-apply for the Witness Protection Program itong si Orly Gutesa kasi sabi niya, kaya niya naman daw protektahan yung kanyang sarili. So, tinignan natin if it's still going to be invited sa mga susunod na pagdinig related to flood control or if magkakaroon ng ibang call itong Blue Ribbon under Senator Erwin Tulfo as acting chairman.
Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, no-show din siya sa DOJ ba or sa sa ICI, diba?
DOJ din.
Oo, diba no-show siya. Okay, so nakita mo na ba si Senator Mark Villar dyan ngayon sa Senado? Kasi gusto natin itanong, diba, ano ba talaga yung nangyari dun sa ICI investigation? According to Ramon Tulfo, nagwala daw siya. Of course, sinabi naman ng ICI through their spokesperson, wala naman daw ganun nangyari.
So far kasi yung mga nandito pala ngayon sila Senator Sherwin mula sa Finances, sila Senator Kiko dahil nga sa mga committee na hearings na sinasagawa ngayong araw. Pero so far yung ilang mga senador hindi pa natin sila nakahagilap dito. Pero for the others naman, for example, Senator Erwin at Senator Nisa, nasabi rin ni SP Soto dito last time is meron silang engagements overseas. So yun yung hinihintay din nila pag nakabalik na dito sa bansa si Senator Erwin, meeting na ng Blue Ribbon. For Senator Risa, na ang sa huli natin nakita kasi para nasa Amerika siya at inimbitahan siya sa opening ng Filipino Town sa Las Vegas. So kaya baka kahit nag-reach out ang media sa lumipas na linggo, wala pa tayong nakukuhang info sa kanya kung tatanggapin niya ang Blue Ribbon. For the other senators, aabangan muna natin sila kung bababa sila dito kasi wala ring plenary sessions ngayon until November 9. So chances are, kung sino muna yung madadaanan at makakasalubong natin dito, sila muna yung nandito sa Senado.
Testimonya mula sa iba't ibang mga senador regarding dito sa naging desisyon ng ICC naman, no, sa hiling na interim release para kay former President Rodrigo Duterte.
So far nananatili pa ring matibay itong mga yung society ng nina Senatora Bato de la Rosa, nina Senatora Amy Marcos, Senatora Bongo, na umaasa pa rin sila na mayroon ngang mangyayari na house arrest, and hopefully nasabi rin ni Vice President Sara Duterte last time kung pagkakaroon nga ng pagkakataon sa Davao nga raw sana gagawin yun. Pero ang so far naman wala pa namang bagong sentimiento lumalabas mula dito sa Senado at inaantabayanan din naman kasi ang nangyari naman during that time na dumaan naman sa boto yung resolution and nakuha yung majority votes doon, kaya inendorso din yung Senate resolution na yon requesting for the house arrest of former president and magkaroon siya nung sariling doktor or physician para ma-check daw talaga yung kalusugan at lagay ng dating presidente.
Alright, maraming salamat sa update. That was our mobile journal, Merimon Reyes, reporting live from the Senate. We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning. You're still watching News and Views here on One News. The Philippine Coast Guard and Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources condemned the dangerous maneuvers of the China Coast Guard near Pag-asa Island on Sunday. PCG spokesperson on West Philippine Sea, Commodore J. Tariela, said CCG vessel 21559 fired a water cannon and rammed the BRP Datu Pagbuaya while it was anchored within Philippine waters. The incident caused minor damage to the Filipino vessel. Despite the incident, Tariela said the PCG will maintain its presence in the Kalayaan Island group to protect Filipino fishermen and assert the country's sovereignty. Well, for this year, hindi ko na alam kung pang ilan na yan. Kasi if I'm not mistaken, of course, our country will file another diplomatic protest. And hindi ko na alam kung pang ilan na yan. Pero yun nga, di ba, every time that we would talk to somebody, let's say a political analyst, di ba, security analyst. Di mo na kinakagulat yan. Oo, sinasabi nila, it's better na nga daw na nagkakaroon tayo ng filing ng mga diplomatic protest. Because on record. You're putting it on the record that you are protesting the actions against it. Kasi the moment you stop the protesting or filing diplomatic protest, it's tantamount to saying na accepting yung position ng China in the West Philippine Sea. So that means we are contesting their position. So, hindi ko lang alam kasi kung ano yung ginagawa yung sa ano natin eh. Before kasi, di ba, pag nagkakaroon ng ganitong incident, usually yung mga, ang tawag doon, yung ayuda na binibigay sa mga fishermen. Yun yung mga hinaharang eh. This one, hindi ko lang kasi sure kung anong yung context.
Relief efforts sila. Alright, in other news, Cavite Representative Kiko Barzaga led an anti-Marcos Romualdez rally at Dasmariñas Village in Makati City last night. The protesters first went to Dasmariñas Village and called for the resignation of President Bongbong Marcos amid allegations of corruption in his administration. They later moved to the Buendia Gate of Forbes Park Village before returning to Dasmariñas Village. More than 200 participants continue their program under police supervision.
Now, a new SWS survey reveals that more than half of Filipinos believe former President Rodrigo Duterte should be held accountable. This comes as the International Criminal Court or ICC denies his request for interim release. Here's the report.
Tayo po ay nagpapasalamat kay Vice President Sara Duterte.
This may be the first time that some groups and families of victims of the war on drugs have expressed gratitude to the Vice President Sara Duterte. They say it was her own statements that prompted the International Criminal Court's pre-trial chamber to deny the defense's request for the interim release of former President Rodrigo Duterte.
Sa totoo po, told you so, parang ganon. Kasi matagal na po namin pinupoint out yan, na yung statements mismo nung Duterte family ang magagamit or gagamitin ng korte to decide.
One of the bases cited by the ICC was VP Sara's public statements, which contradicted the position of the defense team. Among these was the Duterte's family's plan to bring the former president back to Davao if he were granted interim release, a claim inconsistent with the defense's assertion that he would remain in the state granting his release. The ICC also noted the vice president's earlier remarks suggesting that they would help her father escape ICC detention. Families of war on drugs victims welcomed the ICC's decision against former President Rodrigo Duterte, who is facing charges of crimes against humanity.
Ayaw na namin siyang palabasin dahil isa po itong banta sa aming mga pamilya at sa lahat po ng mga inabuso ni Duterte.
Davao City Congressman Pulong Duterte meanwhile denounced the ICC's decision, calling it political theater rather than law. He further claimed his father is a victim of political persecution and vowed to hold accountable those he accused of kidnapping his father.
Right. Actually, sabi daw ng brother ni former President Rodrigo Duterte na si Bong Duterte, former President Rodrigo Duterte is well aware of the
he was made about
the decision na rejected yung kanilang request. Pero
for the interim release.
According to his lead counsel, si Attorney Kaufman, tama ba? Kaufman, no? Nakapag-file na sila ng motion.
Yeah, standard procedure naman yan eh. Pero one of the points daw na pinoint out ng International Criminal Court why they rejected the plea was yung mga, of course, they took into account statements of the Vice President, Sara Duterte, and Pulong also, which caused to be, well, I don't know, hindi pa nagre-react or kung alam daw ng former President na yun ang mga ibang dahilan kung bakit na-deny yung request for interim
and
release.
And diba time and again, when we talk to Attorney James Butuyan and Attorney Cristina Conti, diba we would always point out yung mga statements of the Duterte family regarding this, na baka ma-use it against them. And of course, yung, let's say for example, Mayor Base Duterte, still mayor there in Davao. Tapos si Vice President Sara Duterte, still Vice President here in the Philippines. And hindi din nag-move forward yung kanyang impeachment case. And that shows you power.
Tsaka yung yung we talked about with Attorney Butuyan and Attorney Conti na the mere fact na the Philippine Senate, supposedly an independent institution, was able to pass a resolution requesting for the interim release dito sa Philippines ni former President Duterte means may kapit pa rin siya. May influence pa rin ang name niya sa mga senador natin.
Right. And before we move forward, kasi for context, one of the factors nga doon sa interim release na tinitignan ng ICC is yung influence, yung power ng isang nakadetain dito.
To influence the witnesses and other matters.
Right.
The Out of the Box Media Literacy Initiative has launched a nationwide dialogue on media and information literacy, bringing together sectors to discuss a national framework. Mobile journalist Fatima Baduria has the report.
Out of the Box Media Literacy Initiative has kicked off its dialogue with different sectors on media and information literacy in the Philippines, aiming to push for a national framework.
The Philippine MIL Summit gathered representatives from different sectors for a conversation on building a coalition and action plan on the matter.
Ang unang step talaga ay yung coalition. Mga taong naniniwala na importante to at kailangan to. Yung contribution din ng bawat sector talaga, the education sector, the media education, the tech sector, and of course civil society, yun, importante din yun.
The first of the two-part dialogue focused on brainstorming policy strategies for a national MIL framework. However, participants recommended approaching it from the ground up.
Can we start small? Let's cook it na parang bibingka. Sabay natin lutuin yung sa baba with the LGUs and sa taas yung national.
For Out of the Box, making MIL a priority for legislation is one of its biggest challenges.
Yung bureaucracy talaga nung pagpasa ng bill, mahabang proseso siya. Kaya din, siguro yung approach na nakikita ng mga nung coalition, or nung sectors who wanna be involved here ay mas ground up pa muna.
One of the goals of advancing a national MIL framework is to equip people with necessary skills to navigate and act upon information.
Yung pag-aaral kasi ng MIL, hindi lang siya sa school. Pwede mo siya talagang i-apply sa pagboto, apply sa pagbasa ng balita about flood control projects or the whatever corruption issues that we're facing now. Hindi lang dapat surface level yung ating binabasa or yung ating tinitignan, pinapakinggan.
The dialogue on Philippine MIL will resume on November 21, which will include representatives from the government, academe, media, and technology companies. Kapatid Fatima Baduria, we are One News.
Don't go away because we're not done yet. Stay with us.
May kinilig, namangha, naiyak. Pinasilip na kasi ang second batch ng official 51st MMFF entries last Friday sa University of Makati. Kompleto yan mapa-romance, horror, comedy at drama. At mula 20 entries, we are down to the last 4.
Well, unang-una, nahirapan po talaga yung selection committee natin. Talagang masasabi namin na quality films po talaga yung mga nakapasok sa MMFF 2025.
For the last 4, kasama ang romance films na Love You So Bad, starring Bianca De Vera, Dustin Yu and Will Ashley. Comeback film ni Angelica Panganiban at Zanjo Marudo na Unmarry. Bar Boys After School starring Carlo Aquino, Kian Cipriano, Enzo Pineda, Clarice De Guzman and Will Ashley. At ang sensational na I'm Perfect, starring Crystal Go and Earl Amaba, mga aktor na may Down syndrome.
Pagbukas pa lang, pagkakita ko sa mga bida na nakita ko Down syndrome, honestly, ang naging reaction ko, napapikay ako. Nung nag-dialogue na, sabi ko kay Derek Sigrid, yan ang gusto ko.
Una namang inanunsyo ang first 4 entries na Call Me Mother ni Nadine Lustre at Vice Ganda, Reconnect starring Gerald Anderson, Gloria Diaz, Alex Samiro, Carmina Villaruel and Zoran Legaspi, Shake, Rattle and Roll, Evil Origins ni Francine Diaz, Janice De Belen and Carla Abellana, at Manila's Finest na pagbibidahan ni Piolo Pascual. Gaganapin naman this December 19 ang Parade of Stars, habang sa December 27 naman ang Gabi ng Parangal.
Sa atin po mga kababayan, tingin po natin na yung tradisyon ng Kapaskuhan sa pamamagitan ng panonood po ng 8 pelikulang kalahok dito po sa Metro Manila Film Festival 2025.
Mga kapatid, Mobile Journal Denise Valdesancho po, hatid ang mukha ng balita.
Welcome back. You're still watching News and Views here on One News.
More adult Filipinos now frequently experience stress, according to the latest Social Weather Station survey. The survey conducted from September 24 to 30 found that 34% of adult Filipinos feel stressed frequently, up from 27% in December 2019. Meanwhile, 32% feel stressed sometimes, 30% rarely, and 4% never. The survey also showed that 53% of Filipinos experience major stress from money matters, 42% from health, 39% from work or school, and 38% from family-related concerns.
And to further discuss this, we have Philippine Psychiatric Association President Dr. Joan May Perez Rifarial. Good morning, Doc. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Doc.
Hello, good morning. Good morning, Ma'am Ange. Good morning, Sir Diego. Angelo. Tama.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for having me for news and views.
Yeah, thank you, Doc, for joining us. And of course, we all go through stress, but the numbers are, sabi nila, quite alarming na tumataas ang occurrences and stress among adults. Is this really concerning? And if you look at the issues, money is up there, of course. But paano po nakaka-apekto rin yung mga sunod-sunod na calamities?
Yeah, oo. Yes, sir. This is very correct, no? Kasi ang stress is always a part of life, but too much and excessive, and yung paulit-ulit, prolonged stress can of course affect us mentally, psychologically, socially, physically. It may manifest in various na forms, and lalo na ngayon na sunod-sunod ang ating mga disasters, calamities, nagdudulot din to ng additional stress aside from those mentioned kanina na money, academics, work, family, health. So really, pag ito ay patong-patong, sunod-sunod, persistent, nakakaapekto to sa ating mga pang-araw-araw na thoughts, behaviors, and actions.
Aside from that, Doc, how does it affect one's physical self? No? Kasi ang alam natin, stress can break down your body down to a point na your physical health deteriorates.
Correct. Sa pag tayo ay nasa fight or flight response, kasi ito yung natitrigger, ito yung the science behind it, pag labis ang ating stress, ay nagkakaroon tayo ng that rush in adrenaline, norepinephrine, cortisol, which is the stress hormone, nagmamanifest ito physically. For example, body aches and pains na palipat-lipat na unexplainable. For example, today masakit ang ulo, bukas masakit ang tiyan, masakit ang tuhod, masakit ang likod. So, palipat-lipat na body aches and pains. Another is changes in our mga heart rate, palpitations, hirap sa paghinga, para tayong sometimes yung BP natin may increase. So sometimes pag nasa-stress tayo, nagkakaroon ng mataas na blood pressure levels. Another is nagkakaroon ng problema sa changes in sleeping patterns, be it tulog ng tulog or kulang sa tulog, paputol-putol ang tulog, and sleep and eating patterns can also be affected. Like walang ganang kumain kaya pumapayat, or baliktad also, sir, it can be kain ng kain kaya tawag ito on stress eating, diba? And yun sa physical. So emotionally naman, it may manifest as irritability, mga mood shifts, anger, difficulty controlling emotions, impulsivity, that feeling of anxiety, takot, constant worry, fear. Lalo na ngayon na may disasters tayo sunod-sunod, there is that feeling na parang takot tayo, we have lost control kung kailan mangyayari ulit. It leaves us feeling helpless, for example. And behaviorally, maaring ang isang individual pag nasa stress, mas dumadami or tumataas ang kanyang use of mga unhealthy coping strategies, siguro like smoking, alcohol drinking, use of other substances. Kaya kailangan maagapan kaagad natin. We are aware pag tayo ay nasa-stress na, at agapan natin kaagad. Kasi prevention pa rin naman is always better.
Oo. So isa pa dapat na pag-usapan natin sa susunod yung disaster fatigue dahil nga sa sunod-sunod na stress natin dahil sa sunod-sunod na mga earthquake sa atin ngayon. But the survey shows, Doc, 53% of Filipinos experience major stress from money matters. So tayo mga Pilipino, kaakibat na ata natin na magkaroon ng problema pagdating sa kaperahan eh. 'Di ba? Yan ang nagiging problema natin, pera na lang siguro yung mga corrupt na officials, di nila problema yan. Pero tayo mga ordinaryong Pilipino, 'di ba? Paano natin maiwasan na ma-stress over pera?
Yes, which is normal to, Ma'am Ange, ha? So we also need to acknowledge na pag tayo ay nakakaramdam ng stress over money matters, health, family issues, etc., normal itong mga emotions na pinagdadaanan natin due to an abnormal situation. Ang situation yung abnormal, but our emotions are normal. So mas maganda, with that acknowledgement ngayon ng ating emotions, dapat alamin natin saan ang gagaling, ano ang root causes ng ating stress, saan nagmumula. No? Kung money, then mas with that awareness ngayon comes the action part. No? So siguro gagawa na tayo, we come up with mga options na maaari makatulong sa atin during this time. No? And ang always pinapaalala na natin is pag tayo ay nasa-stress, know that it's okay to reach out, ask for help, temporary ito. So kung kinakailangan to, may mga side hustles or kung kinakailangan to temporarily, hingi tayo ng tulong, please reach out, ask for help temporarily, and know na sama-sama naman tayo. May mga taong handang tumulong. So, ito lang kailangan natin, the acknowledgement, awareness, root causes kung saan nanggagaling yung ating stressors para ma-address natin ito kaagad.
Doc, now that you mentioned how we can pinpoint yung cause ng stress natin, in our own little way, in a way that we can control, stopping short of going to the doctor, kunyari, financial nga problem mo, wala kang pang doktor o pang check-up, what are the little things we can do to at least keep your stress in check?
Yeah, it's very important, sir, na we need to take good care of ourselves first and foremost. Lalo na if we are a parent na meron tayong mga inaalagaan ng mga babies, mga anak natin. So take good care of yourselves first so that you can take care of the people under you or under your care. So number one, i-boost natin ang ating mga natural na mood-boosting hormones. May tinatawag tayong serotonin, dopamine, endorphins through exercise. Gumagalaw-galaw tayo. Hindi naman kailangan gym levels, but movement is very important to boost blood circulation, especially blood flow to our brain cells. Another is get enough rest and sleep. Kinakailangan natin ito. Kasi kung nafe-feel ninyo, pag kulang tayo sa tulog, pagka umaga, parang bugnutin, we are difficult ang ating decision-making, judgment. So kailangan, as much as possible, get about mga 5 to 9 hours of sleep. So average siguro mga 8 hours of sleep kung kaya. Basta avoid sleep deprivation. Eat more of the mood-boosting na food.
Chocolate.
Yeah, fish is very important. Fish, fruits and vegetables, coffee na black coffee lang kasi wag natin dagdagan ng sugar. It's dark chocolate. So mga ganon. And support system is very important. Mas maganda may nakakausap tayo if mas maganda trusted individual para we don't feel alone during this time of stress. Kung wala tayong mahanap na kausap, journaling can help. Yung mga sinusulat natin yung ating thoughts para mailabas natin. And of course, tayo Filipinos, we are very spiritual na people. Go back, finding that purpose and meaning sa ating buhay, sa mga nangyayari ngayon. So spirituality can also help.
Dugtog ko lang quickly and talk about how important is it also, like for example, kung may maliit ka naman na garden sa bahay or area that you could go out, step out from a dark room, taking a look at the sunlight or breathing in the air, is that important?
Yes, very important yun. Tama, sir. Thank you for pointing that out. Kasi ang part doon is sunlight is a precursor. Kailangan siya para sa production ng serotonin. Kaya we encourage sun exposure sa umaga. Yung morning, early morning. Wag naman yung medyo high noon na kasi iba naman na yun. Hindi na siya masyadong healthy for our skin. And pag nag-gardening kasi, it gives meaning also, di ba? Na meron tayong inaalagaan, na living thing, na nagbibigay sa atin ng purpose at meaning. So kung wala namang mga halaman, yung iba, they have pets. Lalo na kung if they are isolated, mag-isa sila sa kanilang dorm, for example, yung mga students, or mag-isa sa kanilang mga apartments kasi malalayo ang kanilang family, mag-alaga sila ng pets. We call it pet therapy also. So make sure lang na kung ano yung mga nakakatulong sa atin na coping strategies ay we always go back to that. Let's enhance our resilience through proper self-care, and of course, support system is very important, and spirituality.
Very quick na lang, Doc, kasi I love it when you mention nga na don't forget to seek help. Tayo naman sa ating mga Pilipino, likas sa atin na makipag-usap tayo sa malapit nating kaibigan, sa family members natin. Pero when is the time na kailangan mo na talaga na kumuha ng or tumingin
when's the right time?
When's the right time to get a professional help?
Yes, that's a very important question, Ma'am Ange. So number one, if we feel ng ating pinagdadaanan, the stress reactions natin and emotions ay patuloy, persistent. For example, persistently bagsak ang ating mood, depressed tayo, or patuloy na lagi tayong kinakabahan to the point na hirap na tayo matulog at nahihirapan na tayong gampanin ang ating mga kailangan gawin, mga gampanin sa buhay, which shows us a decrease or decline in productivity, functionality. Pag hindi tayo nakaka-focus sa trabaho, bagsak na ating mga grades, etc. Pag ito ay patuloy, usually 2 weeks ang binibigay namin na duration. But sana kung mapansin natin na apektado na talaga pati self-care, hindi tayo nakakatulog, hindi na nakakaligo, hindi na nakakabangon, then mas maganda pag apektado na ang ating mga functionality, productivity, performance sa school, sa work, then please seek help kaagad kasi help is always available. At huwag mawala ng pag-asa because meron at merong handang tumulong at may mga therapy na maaaring makatulong also during a time of stressful situation or distress.
Ayun. With that, maraming salamat po sa inyong very insightful discussion. Philippine Psychiatric Association President Dr. Joan Marie Perez Rifarial. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much. More power.
The Philippine Embassy in Washington denies recent reports that a Filipino citizen was among the 10 foreign nationals who boarded a deportation flight to the African state of Eswatini. The embassy was able to confirm that no Filipino citizen has been involved in any third country deportation from the U.S. The individual in question, it added, was unable to establish Philippine citizenship and therefore could not be deported to the Philippines. This comes following reports that 3 Vietnamese men, 1 Filipino, 1 Cambodian, and men from Chad and Cuba were sent to the Southern African nation.
Now in sports, the UAAP, the UP Fighting Maroons kept their hot streak alive in the basketball tournament. This as they escaped a late rally by the FEU Tamaraws to win 69-66 on Sunday. Harold Alarcon led UP with 15 points, while Raylan Torres added 14 as the Maroons notch their 4th straight victory, now tied with Ateneo at 4-2. UP next faces LaSalle in a finals rematch on October 19 at the Smart Araneta Coliseum.
And that wraps up today's episode of News and Views.
Join us again tomorrow. I'm Angela Lagunsad Castro.
I'm Angelo Castro III. Kapatid, we are One News.
All sides, all the time.